Okay, we are going to start. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you had a good lunch. Our next session is titled HRD in a Changing Environment, an Omani Experience. Please welcome to the stage Mr. Ramin and Mohjer from the CEO's office at the Information Technology Authority from the Sultanate of Oman. Please give him a round of applause.
Assalamu alaikum. It's good that there are actually less people, so less questions. I've been told, and actually I've been threatened, and I have 20 minutes, and the MC is going to get closer and closer to the stage. I don't know what weapon she's carrying, but so she gave me firm instructions. I'll try to zoom through it. I will give you a brief introduction as a government authority, who are we, and then my topic is actually the generation gap and how to close the generation gap within an organization. And I will just share with you an experience. There's not much theory involved. It's experiences, modest experiences that we've done in ITA, and we would just like to share it with you. Before I start, when we started looking at this topic, we came across this phrase from Shawqi Effendi: oneness does not mean sameness, it means unity in diversity. So we tried to model that throughout the process of closing the gap within the organization. We're a government entity, very small. It was formed with a royal decree about 10 years ago, but 8 years ago, we physically started the work. We're only 342, and the number will not increase much more. But the work we do basically covers anything to do with the IT world in Oman. So it's the regulations, it's the monitoring, it's the development, it's the putting the basis of e-business, e-society, and e-government in Oman. One of the benefits, not challenges, one of the benefits that we have is that more than a third of the organization are women. And so that's an advantage, I think, that we have. We're 92% Omanis, so in that sense also there isn't much challenge. Now, when you look at the division, and I'll go into the details of what these, some of the definitions of these generations that we have come across and how we try to implement what this generation needs. But if you look at it, we're 14% Generation X as an organization and 85% Generation Y. Now, this wouldn't be an issue, except that the 14% actually run the show. They are on top of the organization. So here's where our challenge was. As an organization, we are run by X generation, but as employees, as people that work in the organization, we're Y. So the gap and how to close the gap was the challenge. These definitions you all know, so I'll just zoom across them and through them. Baby movers, those of us that are between 55 and 74, and moving towards retirement. The X generation, those of us that are between 36 and 54. And this is what we have: the Yers, the millennials, the Y generation, whatever you call them. And when we started 2 years ago to see that this will be an issue, especially that we have no Z generation yet in our part of the industry, but this will be an issue in a few years. So we started to do a bit of background research, and this again is something that you all probably know, that the Y generation are the ones that opened their eyes and understood and got introduced to things like the war on terror, university degree is a must, media is something that they never separate from, They want to do things their way. How many Y generations? How many people here between 19 and 35? يلا عاد ما تصغر سن. Be honest. أبو يوسف أول واحد. Okay, so this generation, the mobile is their workstation. They don't need anything else. They don't need laptops, they don't need offices, and if they were allowed, of course in Oman we have certain regulations, but if they were allowed to wear flip-flops and shorts to the office, they would do that. You know, they're the ones that do the most difficult assignments, listening to music, and they have very high expectations. And they're very goal-orientated. Now, as I go through this, as I go through the definition of some of the characteristics of this generation, I'll tell you what we did in order to overcome it. Just keep in mind that we're a government organization, and all the restrictions that come with what you can and what you can't do is implemented on us as well. The Z generation, I will not go into the details of it, but these are people with from 8 to 21 years of age. They're just entering the market. They don't know a world of without smartphones. They don't know what work is without emails. And as we saw somewhere, that they think that they're into flat organizations, and they have no recollection of a world without Instagrams and Facebooks and the other social media. And they are always connected. The worst part of their life is when they go somewhere there's no Wi-Fi or there's no a net connection. That is the biggest catastrophe I think they would face. So this is a generation that once they come in, I think there's going to be a lot more challenge. Now, in the Gulf, when we look at the gap, there is a lot of gap in our workforce, not just age and generation, but we've had all these throughout the past few years because of our demography and geography and population divisions. We've had racial, religious, national, tribal, class, culture. We've had all these gaps at different stages, which we tried. So getting gaps closer together is not, it's not the first time. But this time, we're trying to get ages or generations close together. In ITA, going back to the first phrase that we saw, we found out early on that we don't need to necessarily have a different strategy for each generation. We had to come up with a generation that takes the Yers closer to the X's and the X's closer to the Yers, but not change them. Because, as we said at the beginning, it's unity in diversity, and that's how best things work. We understood that we needed the idea of family, and this is what we see that Generation Y, they're very family orientated. Xers and baby boomers were people that would work 24/7. The harder you work, the longer you spent at the office, the stronger you were. But this generation gives a lot of importance to the family. The generation competence, basically, when we came to the best practices that we saw, the Generation Y, the 85% of the people that we have in our organization, were really into development. They did not care about job titles as much, and as one of the speakers this morning mentioned, salary is not that important to them because they know they can get that salary anywhere else anyway. So the satisfaction was developing and learning for themselves. So they needed peer interaction, they needed discussion groups, they needed brainstorming sessions, they needed coaching, all the things that the speakers actually pointed out throughout this morning. And rotational programs, mentoring, online learning, we took each of these findings and we tried to do something about it within our limitations as a government organization. So in the learning and development, we, first of all, put a learning and development plan for everybody. So every single person has an individual and a divisional learning and development plan from the T-boys and the drivers all the way up to the CEO. Nobody's an exception. They get training plans set for them, and they have to actually do it. And the thing that we did, we involved everybody, and that's what Generation Y wanted. We involved them in what they wanted for themselves, in what they wanted for others. It wasn't, in Bahrain, you probably have this program, ما يطلبه المشاهدون, or ما يطلبه المستمعون. It wasn't that they would ask for anything and we would give it to them, but just to get the buy-in, just to get them on board and feel that they're contributing something to themselves and others, we really took and respected their opinions. And we have this motto that everybody is a coach. Everybody is a coach at some stage for a certain person that comes across their path, whether it's for their peers, for the students that we train during the summer program. So we put, especially the middle management, the team leaders, the directors, the acting directors, all of them in coaching programs, because that was part of the culture that we thought this Generation Y really needed. The younger generation, the Generation Y, 20% of them in surveys want to stay in the same place for their working life. So they want to change. With us, they don't stay more than 3 to 5 years. And whatever we spend on them, train them, at the end of the day, they're going to be serving Oman. They're not going anywhere. So it doesn't really matter if they're with us or anybody else. This mentality of the 90s and the beginning of the millennium that, if I spend on him, he's going to leave me, so what is going to leave you? That's the generation we have to deal with. So they leave you, but they're not going far. At the end of the day, we would be proud for them to go to any other organization and say that what I learned was from ITA. So the attitude that we have had to change towards them, whether it's a ruler's attitude or a boss's attitude, or whether it's to do with the loyalty. So we found out that they were competitive, they think very visually, and they want immediate gratification. They don't want you to give them just a bonus after 12 months of working hard. They wanted something more regular. They emphasize a lot on fun, so things for them are fun and excitement. And they go to work because they want to get better at what they do. It's not just a job for them, it's passion and love. Whereas in the old generations, if you read about them, you'll see that they were more mechanical than actually passion and love. And they're very high maintenance. A voucher of a few riyals is not going to be, if you want to give them something meaningful, it has to be a minimum of a latest iPod or iPad or an iPhone. So they're high maintenance, but at the same time, they really give you back. You do get a return on their investment. So what we did with our corridors was that they wanted visual stuff. They wanted breaking areas. So we changed our corridors to these chairs and tables. And what we did was we put different phrases, and we gave them breakout areas. We don't have very big spaces, but we gave them sort of places just outside their office that they can sit, have a conversation with somebody else, totally out of the workplace. And we have things like Rashid. Rashid pops up for you every morning with a different phrase, with a different encouraging phrase. And we found out that by somebody pestering them, these phrases, and usually they are philosophical, they're from mentors around the world, sometimes a hadith, من القرآن الكريم, but mostly it's just general encouragement phrases. And Rashid pops up every morning and gives you something to think about for the rest of the day. Having Employee of the Month was something unheard of in government. In government, you come, you work, which is something you have to, and then you leave. But we brought this, and now this wall's going to be, it's turning into a digital wall very soon. But we brought this because we wanted to give them instant gratification. And I don't have time to go into the process of this, but it's a very democratic process. Everybody votes and everybody's involved. It's not the management choosing them. It's like The Voice or something, and we put their things they've done during that month, and staff vote for them. And we give them, it's not about spending money. We don't have that much anyway. So we do things that really touches them. The parking space next to the CEO's parking space is the highlight. Yani everything that we give is on one side. The parking this person gets for a whole month to park next to the CEO with his is something that they're really proud of and popular. We also arranged a gratitude program. The gratitude program is done at a divisional level. So divisions choose and nominate hardworking individuals, and then they're recognized in public. They're recognized in our away day, where everybody is involved with the board members and everything, or they're recognized at one of our morning sessions every month. We also found out that the Y generation, the 85% of the people that we have, and we are talking about ITA, we're very much project-based. We are into the latest technology. So getting bored there is a bit difficult, but they still manage to do it. They get bored, they want to change. The guy is specialized in IT security. From tomorrow, he wants marketing. So what happens is that they leave. They started leaving us. They started going to banking. They started going to the oil industry, which would take them because they had specialized in something that was sort of rare. And by the way, we have 85% Y generation. The average age in ITA is 27 and a half. So it's a very young Y generation. So these people, so what we decided to do, we decided that anybody that wants to go to any other division is allowed. They apply, and we sort it out with the place they want to go. The guy is in administration. He wants to go to events. He's in events. He wants, obviously, the technical parts, they wouldn't go anyway. If you're not technical, you wouldn't go to a technical. But in general, we allowed it. And in about 75% of the times, after a month, and they have a time limit, yani it's organized, it's not just get up and go. We put it usually between 3 and 6 months. So within a month or two, we started noticing that the guy said, listen, I thought marketing was something, wow, it's not really me. So they asked to go back to their position. So we saved on losing a lot of employees just because they suddenly thought that they would like another division. And we have a huge focus on women and youth to the extent that we do specialized programs for them. We do training for women's development, irrespective of what other training they have. We have specialized training for youth, empowerment, thinking out of the box, that is only for that age group. And I think we set the age as below 30 or something. And so it's for that particular age group in order to emphasize their development. For this generation, knowledge is really power. They cannot live without constantly accessing knowledge. So as an organization, we try to provide as much as possible. Besides setting up a library, which we didn't have, we set up an ITA library. We have a virtual academy online, which is only for, at the moment, for our employees. And through that virtual academy, we connected them to all the trusted organizations such as Cisco, Microsoft, Adobe, and all the rest of them. We got them membership to connect to most of the libraries, such as the Congress Library in the US and the others. And we got them subscriptions for magazines such as Success and the Harvard Business Review and a few of the others. We tried we actually have a subscription per year for each of them to read books online as well as we try to give most of the stuff that we give as gifts, as access, as books. And we got the membership of professional organizations. And because these people want some kind of a recognition, they usually go for certifications. And these are expensive. So we set a target that most of them can access these certifications, get involved, pay for it. If they come back with a certificate, we will pay it, no matter how much it is or how many times it is. So this was another encouragement. And because also it was a bit selfish, because ITA gets rated internationally as an IT organization, and one of the criteria for this standardization internationally is the number of certifications that you have. So it was a win-win situation for us. That's our modest library. They want candid talks. These are the guys that don't go and call the head of ITA left, right, and center, Ma'alik, Sa'atek, and Your Excellency, and they go by first name basis. You're a doctor, you're an engineer, it doesn't really matter. So they talk openly. They're very, very candid. And they have a cultural openness and transparency. They love teamwork and flexibility and well-defined roles and responsibilities. Now, with respect to that, we had different programs, whether it was implemented through courses or implemented practically in the field of culture of learning. As I explained, it was forming the online program, so the online culture gets developed. Because most of our organizations, at least in government, they were used to, in the past few years, to the travels and any kind of course and going to different places that was, alhamdulillah, affordable in those times. Now, during the difficult times, we have to focus on the online. The culture of willingness to develop and be developed, culture of appreciation, culture of service, and culture of transparency. What did we do with respect to this? We have a program called the Ambassador Program, for example. Now, these are normal, average staff that we have. We call them ambassadors. We train them in public speaking, presentation skills, how to treat VIPs. And most of the heads of state and VIPs that visit Oman actually come to ITA because of the different things that we have, such as Virtual Reality Center and SAS Center and all the rest of it. So when they come to visit, it is these people, the basic employee, the average specialized employee, that actually gets to present in front of them, answer questions, and take them around. And the CEO and the top management are in the background. If you see when Prince Charles came, they're in the background walking, and the person in front is an average employee, not even a director or a team leader. And these people get trained very well to do that, but it gives them a sense of belonging, a sense of importance. The top development areas, the Y generation likes leadership, decision-making, problem-solving, irrespective of whether they're leaders or not. As we say in Arabic, كل واحد راس. Everybody thinks they're a leader, they all think they know everything, and they would like to be given those kind of skills. Leading attributes, they listen well and they're dependable, dedicated, but they expect transparency. And by the way, it's vice versa as well. So they like to be listened to as well as good listeners. The working environment, they like flexibility. They don't like fixed offices. So how did we, and they love knowledge sharing, because in the old days or the other generations, you're talking about people that's very difficult to take. Everybody had a sense of belonging. This generation shares because the net taught them that everything can be shared. So they're very much used to it. So what did we try and do? We got involved with a program called Bulletproof Program, which is a leadership program, which is done by Crestcom in the US for the top leaders. But we brought this program at an organizational level, and we involved approximately 82% of the organization. Everybody went through this leadership program because we believe that they are leaders, they want the skills. If they're not leaders in the organization, they're leaders in their homes. If they're not leaders in their homes, they don't have families, they're not responsible for anybody, they're responsible for themselves. So the title leader and leadership applies to them in some form or another. We